Nathan Roth, The Hypnotic Parents Handbook. Page 25. The Hypnotic Language Framework. The next 42 patterns I'll be presenting in this book will be demonstrated by using my hypnotic language framework. The hypnotic language framework is the exact words that will enable you to make your patterns appear more meaningful instead of unnecessarily vague. The hypnotic language framework is comprised of three parts. First, loaded words. Big words that mean a lot, like responsibility, confidence, progress and growth. Second, movers. Words that tell a person how to move from one point to the next, such as remember, go, notice, realize, begin. Third, descriptors. Words used to modify movers and loaded words. Words like easily, quickly, suddenly, specially, certain, unique. So, whereas the first 33 patterns I demonstrated could seem a bit vague, by using the words contained within the hypnotic language framework, we are able to inject concreteness into our patterns. These words are important because content is king, and the hypnotic language framework will enable you to give your hypnotic patterns the content they need to be impactful. So up first, we will be looking at what are called loaded words. Loaded words. Hypnotically loaded words are useful because they allow us to know the subject matter of what we are communicating. They are also special in that they allow us to talk about things without needing to be specific. As you will remember, the more specific you are, the greater the chances the subject has to disagree with you. Disagreement leads to less rapport, which generally means less hypnotic influence. These words are naturally trance-inducing because everyone has a subjective experience of what they mean. Loaded words list: wisdom, safety, learning, exploration, discovery, respect, integrity, healing, growth, security, strength, freedom, creativity, judgment, opportunity, outcome, wealth, possibility, motivation, spontaneity, acceptance, resource, passion, adventure, stability, happiness, joy, understanding, responsibility, power, solution, truth, ambition, initiative, instinct, control, result, clarity, momentum, precision, flexibility, maneuverability, ecstasy, focus, relaxation, imagination, source, perception, awareness, desire, ability, intelligence, progress, resilience, purpose, comfort, connection, curiosity, validation, authenticity, strategy, decision, intuition, peace of mind, integrity, presence, positivity, transformation, commitment, inspiration, feeling, compassion, immersion, determination, philosophy, belief, value. Here is some quick examples of loaded words being used in patterns. You can find some inspiration. You can feel a sense of positivity. You can imagine the confidence you'll feel. Hypnotic movers. Hypnotic movers are words that allow us to move our subjects from one point to another. In the English language, these are most commonly referred to as verbs. In order for us to talk about a hypnotically loaded word like motivation, we need to tell the subject in what way they are going to move towards it. So, for example, remember a time you had the motivation to do things. When you find the motivation to do what you want, it is a wonderful thing. I want you to explore ways you can have more motivation. Notice how each one of the emboldened words paints a different picture of moving towards motivation. As the hypnotist, you are an artist, so it is up to you what picture you paint for the other person. So just remember that when using patterns, these are the words you will be using to direct the movement of a person's thoughts from one point to the next. Hypnotic movers list. Start, begin, go, explore, discover, search, feel, hear, listen, imagine, notice, realize, find, experience, remember, wonder, pretend, understand, think, develop, enjoy, pay attention, take reach, watch, look, focus, recycle, reclaim, renew, refine, transform, shift, change, move, appreciate, achieve, establish, forget, increase. Hypnotic descriptors act as modifiers for the ongoing process of trance. These are great for modifying a person's particular experience or a hypnotical loaded word. When using them to modify a hypnotical loaded word, you get things like a surprising sense of confidence, a tremendous sense of confidence, a sudden sense of confidence. In my hypnotic language framework, hypnotic descriptors are what really sells the illusion of specificity. In the examples above, you will notice the loaded word is confidence. If I didn't use the hypnotic descriptors, you would just get a sense of confidence. Sounds pretty vague, right? What these descriptors are doing is telling the person what flavor of confidence to have. So while they are busy figuring out the flavor, they are noticing how vague your patterns are. They are not noticing how vague your patterns are. Hypnotic descriptors list: peaceful, reassuring, tremendous, relaxed, comfortable, intelligent, efficient, achievable, deep, lasting, massive, stable, rigid, playful, flexible, sincere, wise, friendly, nice, confident, considerate, compromising, fulfilling, exciting, authentic, genuine, instant, immediate, sudden, mysterious, particular, emergent, curious, effortless, easy, innate, valuable, refreshing, new, positive, ever, every, always, superior, unreal, certain, similar, automatic, surprising, pleasant, specific, rapid, rich, fully, determined, drastically, dramatically, thrilling. 42 patterns using the hypnotic language framework. So now we are going to bring everything together. We will be using our hypnotically loaded words, the hypnotic movers and descriptors, to create more artfully vague hypnotic patterns. It's really easy. All you have to do is practice filling in the blanks with the words lists I have given you. I have gone ahead and emboldened the words which pertain to our three lists. As the lists aren't exhaustive, some of the emboldened words might not be contained in them. Notice how beyond the fill-in-the-blank pattern itself. Notice how beyond the fill-in-the-blank pattern itself, that it is these particular words which create the appearance of content and therefore increasingly perceived levels of specificity. Patterns. First, I don't exactly how blank. Example. I don't know exactly how much curiosity you will experience as you search your unconscious for fulfilling new ways to create excitement and wonder. Second, and no matter how blank, you will blank. And no matter how quickly you learn to use these patterns, you'll easily discover the ones you prefer the most. 3. Blank, isn't it? Example. It is nice to have a certain sense of curiosity as you try new things, isn't it? 4. You can blank, can you not? Example. You can imagine some of the opportunities these patterns will give you, can you not? 5. How quickly can you blank? Example. How quickly can you take these understandings and begin to apply them with the type of precision that will give you what you desire? Six. When you blank, then blank. Example. When you look for ways to improve your personal communication, then you inevitably develop the types of skills which allow you to better influence and negotiate a variety of situations. 7. The sooner you blank, the sooner you will blank. Example. The sooner you realize most people aren't good listeners, the sooner you will have the confidence to say just about anything that comes to mind. 8. You may have already started to notice the changes in blank as you blank. Example. You may have already started to notice the changes in your awareness as you think about the possibilities of hypnotic language. 9. Your conscious mind blank, but your unconscious blank. Example. Your conscious mind can follow the words I'm saying, but your unconscious mind has a tremendous ability to imagine unique ways of combining them together. 10. You may have already started to become aware of blank. You may have already started to become aware of a developing sense of clarity as you continue breathing and relaxing with each and every word that I say. 11. Can you imagine blank? Example. Can you imagine the confidence you will have when you notice just some of the positive ways people will respond to your hypnotic language? Can you imagine the confidence you will have when you notice just some of the positive ways people will respond to your hypnotic language? Twelve. Maybe you will blank. Example. Maybe you will feel a sense of positivity as you remember times and places where you were loved and appreciated for who you are and what you represent. 13th. You may notice blank as you blank. Example. You may notice a dramatic improvement in your speaking ability as you continue experimenting with the techniques in this book. 14th. It's okay not to blank. Example. It's okay not to feel comfortable at first. 15th. It's not important that blank. What's important is that blank. Example. It's not important that you are successful in the beginning. What's important is that you remain open to the process so that you continue learning at a consistent rate. 16th. Sooner or later blank. Example. Sooner or later you'll be surprised by the sudden wealth of possibilities for the future. 17th. You can blank because blank. Example. You can imagine what's possible because when you were a child, it was all you did. If that weren't the case, then you would never have learned to walk. You can imagine what's possible because when you were a child, it was all you did. If that weren't the case, then you would never have learned to walk. 18th. Imagine how good you'll feel when you blank. Example. Imagine how good you'll feel when you succeed at putting someone into a light trance with these hypnotic patterns. 19th. It's good that blank. Example. It's good that you can just forget some experiences. You don't need to remember it all. Classic amnesia pattern. It is good that you can just forget some experiences. You don't need to remember it all. 20. You might want to blank. Example. You might want to maintain a positive outlook as you make plans for the future. 21. I know that fact. I also know that benefit. Example: I know that you are reading this because you want to learn. I also know that you can learn something and not realize you have learned it. And it's only until later, when it suddenly shows up in your behavior, that you realize you can learn without even trying. (22nd) It's easy to blank when blank, isn't it? Example: it is easy to stay motivated when you are engaged, isn't it? 23rd. You are probably already aware of blank. Example: you are probably already aware of the childlike sense of curiosity you will want to effectively communicate with people. You are probably already aware of the childlike sense of curiosity you will want to effectively communicate with people. 24th. Because you can blank, it allows you to blank, which means blank. Example: because you can learn to act confidently, it allows you to have a tremendous amount of influence when dealing with people, which means you will be able to adapt to virtually any situation life throws at you. 25. I don't know how blank ly you will blank. Example: I don't know how quickly you will fall asleep. 26. So that you are blank more than you were before you blank. Example: and take a deep breath and let it go with a sigh. So that you are relaxing more than you were before you started listening to me speaking to you as someone who's gone into trance before. It's easy to 27. You can continue blank. Example: you can continue effortlessly wandering. 28. And in a moment when you blank. Example: and in a moment when you find some peace that gives that feeling of spontaneity. 29. And maybe you won't blank at first. Example: and maybe you won't feel a motivating sense of purpose at first. 30. There is really no need to blank, so you can just blank. Example: there is really no need to have complete control, so you can relax knowing it's okay from time to time to feel out of your element. 31st. The issue isn't blank, it's blank. Example. The issue isn't a lack of motivation, it's a lack of clarity on what you want to achieve. 32. And blank, so that you can blank more than you were before. Example. And allow your thoughts to wander so that you can go deeper into trance than you were before. 33. Just because you haven't blank yet, it doesn't mean you can't. It only means blank. Example. Just because you haven't succeeded yet, it doesn't mean you can't. It only means you haven't developed the necessary precision and self-awareness to set goals and keep track of your progress. 34. I began by making him realize blank. Example. I began by making him realize that focus isn't only being able to ignore distractions, but also having the ability to consistently remind yourself what you have decided to do. You are talking about someone else, but really you are talking about them. 35. I didn't realize blank. Example. I didn't realize how easy it is to feel the way I want just by moving differently. You're talking about yourself, but really it's them. This is stealthier than saying you might realize. 36. And what's really interesting is blank. Example. And what's really interesting is how much your focus improves as you practice hypnosis. 37. I'd like for you to blank. Example. I'd like for you to imagine some of the playful ways you can use hypnotic language. 38. As you understand that you will blank. Example. As you understand that, you will become aware of a deep sense of personal power. 39. I bet even though you blank, you still perhaps, even just occasionally blank. Example. I bet even though you might sometimes feel unconfident, you still perhaps, even just occasionally have moments of unwavering certainty in the face of a challenge. 40. All I want for you to notice is blank. Example. All I want for you to notice is the deep sense of wonder you experienced as a child. 41. And maybe you haven't blank just yet. Example. And maybe you haven't discovered your unique sense of purpose just yet. 42nd, and you might not be aware yet, blank. Example. And you might not be aware yet how easily you can create changes in other people's awareness. Using emotions for influence. Excitement and passion are an influencer's main tools. Excitement and passion are an influencer's main tools. Actually, strong emotions are an influencer's main tools. Excitement and passion are just some of those flavors. Some of the flavors. The real trick to getting hypnotic patterns to land and influence other person's thoughts is that they are laced with genuine, authentic and potent emotions. The reasons I'm talking about emotions is because the quickest way to influence someone is to go first. Whether you're trying to create comfort, excitement, curiosity, confusion, or forgetfulness, then you have to achieve these states first. If you want to get good at conveying any emotion or state then you must become like an actor. The first exercise I would suggest in practicing alone and talking about completely boring things, but to make them feel exciting. Once you can make something exciting and it feels real enough to you, then you can experiment with other emotions as you choose. I'm telling you to start with excitement and passion, because these two emotions are highly magnetic to people. So the way you become a master at creating emotions in yourself is by first understanding that emotions are created in the body and not in the mind. What this means is that you move your way. What this means is that you move your way into an emotion such more easily than you can think your way into an emotion. Sure. What this means is that you move your way into an emotion much more easily than you can think your way into an emotion. One more time. What this means is that you move your way into an emotion much more easily than you can think your way into an emotion. Okay, you move your way easily than you can think your way. Okay, you move instead of think. This has to do with the motor cortex and its direct connection to the emotional center of the brain. Your thought cortex, which is really just the part of your mind responsible for language, is actually a few layers removed from the emotional center of your brain, and so lacks direct access to the mechanism responsible for triggering powerful emotions. I'll give you a quick example. Find somewhere quiet and keep telling yourself, I'm feeling excited. Continue saying that for a minute and note your excitement levels. Now, Go somewhere where you can completely let loose and dance around like a maniac. Just start jumping and shouting and wave your arms and legs around all crazy-like. There is no rhyme or reason to why this works. Just go crazy and let loose, and after 30 seconds notice how much more excited you are. The difference in emotional intensity here is mainly to do with the fact that one exercise uses just words while the other uses the body. My point is, if you try to be a robot with hypnotic patterns and leave out your body, you'll come off as a robot and get weak results. This means that if you want to feel an emotion, then you must give yourself permission to move your body in any way that creates and amplifies that emotion. Everyone's different, so the movement won't be the same for everyone. When you are just starting at this, you will typically have an easier time the more you engage the whole body in the activity. As you get more experienced at using your whole body to create and intensify emotions, you will learn to rely on just a small portion of your body to create an emotion. Things like wiggling your finger or changing your breathing or using your face alone to create an emotion are really neat places to do this. Also, be aware that you won't always get the same intensity of an emotion when you choose to do this. You will always achieve a gradient of the emotion. Sometimes it will feel more potent than others. As long as you are aware of this and you will realize it's a perfectly normal thing, then you will be just fine. Humans are hardwired to connect. If we have difficulty connecting, it just means we have got walls up somewhere. I can't tell you how to find the walls or identify them directly and label their causes. That would be like trying to set water on fire. That being said, the way we know we have got walls is the symptom problems they create. That being said, the way we know we have got walls is the symptoms problems they create. I prefer to go around mental walls instead of breaking through them. Breaking through walls is very tiring. I know people have breakthroughs, but it can't always feel like it is a breakthrough for everyone. I imagine that some people, when they overcome a limitation, like that it often feels surreal or almost like, yeah, obviously that's happening now because it's happening. One of my biggest appreciations for hypnosis and this technique of creating emotions in the body is that it allowed me to not only realize I had emotions just like everyone else, but also that I could choose to have them more potently and on command. This is wonderful because most people aren't capable of this. They are just at the whim of their emotions happening to them. Now, that isn't to say you will have complete emotional control over yourself. That would be unrealistic. There are some things you just cannot control, but eventually you will have exercised yourself into a level of emotional control and fidelity that most people simply don't have. I find hypnosis, meditation, and this emotional exercise of creating emotions through body movement to be the easiest way to exercise your emotional fidelity. Do remember that at the beginning it is okay for emotions to be an act. But either way you look at it, emotions are an act. They are an act in that it's something that can take over you and make you act a certain way. It is also an act in that you can choose to act an emotion out, and it will eventually take root in your neurology. Eventually, time will come where you won't feel you need to deliberately act an emotion just to have it. It will be at that point that your emotional states become massively intoxicating and influential to not just yourself, but other people. Closing thoughts. So, that's it. Those are all the patterns and techniques you will need to go out and start speaking more persuasively. So, that's it. Those are all the patterns and techniques you will need to go out and start speaking more persuasively. I want you to understand that majority of people will not notice what you are doing, so if you are worried about getting caught, realize nobody knows what you are up to. The best way to use these patterns is to pick one pattern and 3 words from the hypnotic language framework lists, and use those repeatedly and unashamedly throughout the day. I personally have found it very useful to type up patterns and then read them aloud. The useful thing about typing patterns up is it gives you a way to focus purely on delivery as opposed to word selection. Delivery really is as important as the patterns themselves. If you don't believe them, deadpan, which is to say you deliver them matter-of-factly and with at least some kind of emotion, then their degree of influence will be diminished. It is important that we learn to lean into our edges and communicate to people in a genuine, authentic, and reaffirming way to who they are, where they are going and what they represent, The reality is few people really take any effort actually listening to and responding to another human being. Most people are just waiting for their turn to talk, and they don't even notice that. So you really have to wonder what they don't notice about speaking in general. The majority of people have fallen into the habit of just throwing words at each other with very little effort or purpose behind them. Once you really understand this, you will realize that hypnotic patterns in and of themselves are some of the most genuine and authentic ways to communicate. You are actually the one making an effort to communicate with people in a way that is maximally relevant to who they are and where they are going. At the same time, I would hope you avoid the trap of thinking you deserve to be bathed in appreciation for making an effort to develop a skill that you find worthwhile. This isn't the nature of things. Personal success lies at the end of a road littered with private victories. I wish you the best of luck, and I hope you will have fun using this, because there are so many opportunities out there to try hypnotic language, and it is amazingly fun.